Joined now by Milltown senior footballer Mike Merton and Gary Moore footballer and ex-Girvan footballer Kieran McGrath. Um, how does it feel when you hear that, Kieran?
Yeah, it's unusual, Paul. First off, I suppose, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm no longer a Corofin footballer. I'm a Gary Moore footballer, but I didn't think I'd ever say that, being honest, that I felt the day would come that I would be no longer a Corofin footballer, but I'd retire. But and I thought I had retired. But Fitzy convinced me to come back out of retirement and play another year. So we'll see. Maybe this time it is retirement, I think.
What did I know you said you were coaching Gary Moore early on and then you went in and played, but was it a tough decision? Because I know you said you were hoping at the start maybe to try and play an intermediate, but the schedules just kind of clashed.
Yeah, it was a tough decision because a lot of good lads still in Corofin that I'd be very close with, and in particular, I suppose, Sicey, Joe Kenny involved in management and lads like that. And it's hard leave addressing like that, even though I'm getting older and you have to move on at some stage. I suppose the minute I transferred, you really are closing that door. If I was coaching Gary Moore and didn't transfer, there's always a chance, I suppose, in the back of your head that you can always go back up and train towards the end of the year or whatever it may be. But I suppose I was committed to Gary Moore. It was hard to do both, and I suppose when the opportunity came or arose to play a bit, I said I'd give it a go, and I think I've done okay. Pace, to be honest, probably isn't as fast as the Galway club scene. I think, and Mayo clubs tend to play with a lot of bodies behind the ball, so it actually gave me an opportunity against some oppositions to actually just free up and play as a spare man at the back. So that's suited when you're going on 38 years of age.
And how was it being a Galway man playing in the Mayo Championship? Any of the Mayo lads out to get you?
Yeah, a few run-ins. Funny enough, mostly with referees. Mostly with referees, but yeah, a few run-ins. But all again, like the Galway Club Championship, I had plenty of run-ins with Mike down through the years. And once the final whistle goes, you shake hands and you get up and get on with it, you know. And that's similar in Mayo. There was a few run-ins. I remember one run-in a league game in the league semi-final with James Durkin, who I suppose down through the years with Castlebar, ourselves and Castlebar with Corofin would have had a rivalry, and we kind of squared up, and in the end up we shook hands and just kind of laughed it off that the fire was still there between the two of us, I suppose.
Do you ever mark each other, Mike?
Geez, I don't think so, Gizzy. I don't know. Gizzy might be able to tell you better, but I think I was always marking Fitzy because I was always full forward. But no, I don't think we ever marked each other. I wouldn't like to mark them.
No, I used to get the job on Mark here, which was a tricky job also.
This weekend, lads, the semi-finals taking centre stage. Before we get into the preview, Mike, 4 teams left: Annadown, Salthill, Mountbellew, Moycullen. Is there anyone you're rooting for to win the county title?
No, not really. I don't really know, to be honest. Maybe Salthill. You know, I'd like maybe Salthill to just someone new more than anyone else. You know, Mountbellew and Moycullen have won it the last 2 years, and I suppose Corofin have been there for years. Like, so it'd be nice for a new team to break through, and I suppose Salthill are a good young up and coming team, and it'd be brilliant for the county, for someone new to win the county title.
Anyone you're rooting for, Gizzy?
No, look, it would be nice, I think, to see Salthill or Annadown. Annadown the same way. It'd be a nice story for them, because like before the quarter final, it looked like they weren't going to make it through at all. So it'd be some story if they went on to win it. And it's not beyond. I'd imagine they're out of the 4 teams, they're definitely the underdogs. But when you have Damien Comer and 1 or 2 others, you always have a chance.
I think as well, Gizzy or Paul, it'd be some story for Alan Flynn as well. Like, you know, he's after winning the Leitrim Championship down in Leitrim, and if he ever done it with Annadown and they were ever to meet in a Connacht semi-final or a Connacht final, I don't know how they'd work that day, what would happen, but that'd be some story. So
yeah, it's remarkable. Alan Flynn, Brian Roach, and Sean Murphy with Annadown and St Mary's definitely will be interesting, and it'd be wonderful to see Annadown win the county title. But I'll say that as an Annadown man. The first semi-final up, Annadown and Salthill, 2:00 in Pearse Stadium on Sunday. Gizzy, in one way, these sides already met in the group. Salthill won 118-18. But does, like, for Salthill, is it a disadvantage going into this one? Because as you're saying, they're young side. They've beaten Annadown already by 10 points. Well, it's probably a perfect situation really for Annadown going into this one.
Yeah, Annadown, I think will fancy themselves. Yeah, it's hard to turn around a 10-point swing, but weather conditions have changed. You know, Salthill with their younger footballers, if it's a bad day in Salthill, it mightn't suit. Injuries will play a part. I heard during the week that Owen Kearns might feature, so if that happens, that'll be a plus. We haven't seen much of Kieran Duggan. Will he feature? You know, there will be a good buzz in that Annadown camp after that big win over Barna. That'll just give them a bit of energy going into the quarterfinal, going into a semi-final, and they'll have every chance.
Weather conditions, as you mentioned there, Mike, like when Annadown played Salthill and even when Salthill played Mountbellew, they're just different games of football now, really, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, Paul. Like, if you look at the quarterfinals, like, no team bet each other by more than 2 points. I think 2 of the games were 2 points and 2 of them were 1 point wins. So, like, it's definitely a huge factor, the weather. But I think for Salthill, I think they play a bit defensive, like, you know, and I think if they can just stop the ball going into Damien Comer and Frankie Burke, and if they can break at pace and get the quick ball into the few forwards, Robert Finnerty and Tom O'Connell, I think they'll get the scores. And I think, you know, it's a big game for Salthill, because if they are to come through, I think they'll give Moycullen or Mountbellew a right crack in the final, like, you know.
What's the biggest challenge as a forward in this kind of weather, Mike?
I suppose winning the ball out in front of you, that's the biggest thing. You know, it's awful easy for a back to get a hand in or just get a shove in and push you off your stride, like, you know. So I think we've seen it the last day again in the Curve in Mountbellew game. Marks is a big thing the next day. You can be getting your marks, get out in front of your man and get winning them few marks. And I think Salthill just have a few classy forwards inside, and, you know, fairness, Tom O'Connell stood up the last day. And another thing as well, you know, Robert Finnerty went off after 15 minutes, 20 minutes the last day again, Tuam. You know, so Salthill take great confidence from that game to beat you know, a very good Tuam team without arguably their captain and their probably best player, like, you know. So you know, but Annadown, like, geez, like they've some opportunity when you think about it, like, you know. Like, what an opportunity. They were as good as out of the championship. And probably if that game had gone on, that Barna game had gone on the same time as the other games, they probably wouldn't have got through, like, you know. Just being honest, I'm not being begrudging them of anything, like, you know what I mean. You know, we could have easily got through then, like, you know, but it's just the way it is. And as Gizzy said there a few minutes ago, it's a huge opportunity for them, and they'll be buzzing a training this week, and especially Alan Flynn coming up now, and the 3 boys coming up now to training after winning the championship below in Leitrim. You know, they'll bring huge confidence into that team. And, you know, if Owen Kearns is back, you know, he'll probably mark Robert Finnerty, Tom O'Connell, and he'll give a bags of it anyway, because he's a little tigerish. He's just like you, Gizzy. He's a tigerish little cornerback, like, you know. So it's set up for a good game, but there won't be a lot between the two teams in both games. It'll be only a kick of a ball, I think, anyway, like, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I just think, you know, if Salthill can stop the supply going into the 2 lads inside, and if they can keep it tight at the back and move the ball forward, I think they'll get the scores good enough. Maybe if the boys can click up front, to maybe see it out by a few points.
Gizzy, is it backs weather?
Yeah, look at weather like this would suit most backs. But when you have a forward like Damien Comer, regardless of the weather, he's going to be hard stopping. If Damien Comer hits form, that could be trouble for Salthill. On the other side, you have to be really impressed with Rob Finnerty. He's still young, and he's a real leader in that Salthill team. And played against him maybe at, was it the maybe 2016-17 final along that, and you were just unsure whether he'd have the mentality to go to the next level, but he really has. He had a great year for Galway, to be fair to him, and he's having a good year so far for Salthill. And in fairness, he seems like he can play in numerous positions. He doesn't need to be full forward. He can come out, play 11 or play at midfield. Tom O, the same way as Mike mentioned there. Tom O's having a great year, another young guy, played very well against Tuam. And to be fair, okay, Salthill were probably favourites going to the Tuam game, but Tuam and Mike can tell you this, Tuam are sticky and dogged the last few years, very hard bet, very well organised. And when you do beat them, when you do beat Tuam or have Tuam bet, you'll go a long way to win a county title. We always felt playing Tuam, you look forward to it because it was a local derby, but you knew you were getting bags out, and Salthill got bags out the last day. I was impressed too with it was Hunt,
Tony Hunt.
Yeah, and Paddy Kate as well the last day. I thought they played well for Salthill. Cathal Sweeney, obviously, I was watching it on TV, but it looked like he was picking up Jamie Murphy, and that looked like a ding-dong battle, and he's a quality footballer. The only thing I'd be wary about Salthill is that at times when Tuam ran at them defensively, Salthill tended to all rush towards the ball, and it left bodies on the outside and inside a couple of times, that if Tuam got the head up, the Salthill players had all rushed to one guy. And obviously, if 4 or 5 go to one guy, there's other guys free. So they just need to be conscious of that yes, you're eager to win the ball, but also you got to stay with your man. Sometimes going ball-headed for that ball, sometimes it's not the best option. And I'm just wary that it happened a few times against Tuam. Tuam probably didn't capitalise on it, but if Annadown do, they could be in trouble.
Mike, you mentioned Rob Finnerty coming off injured against Tuam. It seems to be a back spasm issue that's affecting him. It's a very hard injury to know will he feature or not this weekend, I suppose, because Salthill aren't going to be giving anything away either.
Oh, it's huge, Paul. Like that could be the difference in Salthill winning the game or losing the game. So yeah, I think he's been carrying it though a while. So it's a tough one, really. Like if Salthill have to go out now without Robert Finnerty, it's going to be a tough ask, But on the other side, then is Tom McCullough still up there, and then he kicked 6 or 7 points, and there's no reason he couldn't step up the next day, and they have a young lad there, Evan Murphy as well, a really good player as well. He could step up the next day, so. I know he's such a huge player for them, but they'll know during the week, if he's going to be playing or not, and if he's not going to be playing, obviously they'll plan without him, and if he is playing, he's a huge player for them, but I'm sure they'll know that it won't be just before throwing, they'll know if he's going to be playing or not,
There is a lot of talk as well, Mike, about Owen Kern playing. Is it a hard game though, for the Annadown management now to throw him in, because he hasn't been there all year? Could piss people off, you could say, in some way, because they've been slogging all year. But then you're saying if you bring him back in, it's for the betterment of the team.
Well, yeah, sure. Look, if you're a sub up there and you're pushing, trying to get in the team, and this lad just comes out of nowhere and he goes straight into the team, you're obviously going to be probably a bit put out about it. But I suppose the way Alan Flynn and them lads are looking at it, they're probably getting paid to do a job up there, and if he can do a job on Tom O'Connell or Owen Finnerty, it's a no-brainer. You'll put him straight in the team, and he probably will start. He played with Galway for a good few years, and he was good old cornerback. So and he's still only young as well. So I think you more likely you'd have to start him, for the betterment of the team, obviously.
Do you throw him in, Gizzy?
I'm probably reluctant to throw him in from the start, but definitely I think if they're struggling and they need a man marker at that stage and it's not working on the pitch, and put him in, or even just energy and fairness, he bombs forward and he'll carry ball forward. So like definitely probably reluctant to start him, and only more from the point of view that he has nothing done for himself, that it mightn't go well for him. Whereas throw him in, okay, if there's 10 minutes gone or 10 minutes left, and just let him go hell for leather and see how he goes. But look at Annadown. I know we're probably looking at the 4 semi-finals and saying, look at Annadown or underdogs, whether they should or shouldn't be there. But like Annadown have been thereabouts since 17, 18. Frankie Burke is still soldering for them, and he'll take marking. Like Salthill, he's a good forward, has been a good club player in Galway for 10, 12 more years than that. But he'll need marking. Malarkey is there, a good guy, good club player as well for Annadown down through the years. So they have a bit of that. Ryan Ford as well. I know there was a lot thought of him a few years back. He probably didn't fulfill his potential.
He's working his way back now from injury.
Yeah, they have good players, and they have good seasoned players that won't fear Salthill. And if Salthill do get over the line, which we expect, they'll be made work very hard for it.
That Ciaran Duncan as well, gets like you are, and Paul, like he's been a great player as well. Like I know he's been injured the last year or two. Like he'd be a huge player. Like, and it's only a few years ago they only lost to you by a point. I think is he like the last kick of the game, or did Frankie Burke have a chance to win it or something like that? Like so, they won't be bad either. Like maybe we're building the young Salthill team up an awful lot. But it's just it's a great opportunity for them. That's the big thing I see with Annadown. Like as if you told them a few weeks ago they were going to be in a county semi-final, like, and they to beat Moycullen and Salthill to get to a county final, they nearly did, or county final, yeah, they nearly take it. Like so. I could imagine training up there the last week or two would be be very good, like, and very positive, and they'd be looking forward to this, like And you've seen it with the quarterfinals. There's only a point or two between the games, and you don't know a sending off, a black card, all that could come into play, and you don't know how they might just get the bounce of the ball. They'll get them the score or two needed to win the game, like
And the keepers also, Paul, nowadays play a big part in the game. Like not only from kickouts but from open play too. But you have two good keepers playing on either side, and James Healy, in fairness, has been a good keeper down to the years for Annadown, and he has had competition in his own club, but he seems to have come out on top. And like he's another good player that they have, and if you have a good goalkeeper, it's a great springboard for you to start with, to be honest.
Just on Annadown, before we get into the matchups, because we were talking there about Salthill, Tomo, Infinity and everything. But Gizzy, you talked there about them being a seasoned team. Do you think they'll kind of feel like it's a kind of smash and grab opportunity for them?
Yeah, I think if you're in the Annadown dressing room or you're in the management team, you're talking about having a free shot here at a semi-final. They probably tried hard over the course of 4 or 5 years when Corofin were dominant. They were pushing hard, trying to get to that semi-final or final and try and win one. And now they probably feel themselves they're not as good as what they were, mightn't have tried as hard as what they did in the past, and all of a sudden they find themselves in a semi-final and with a great opportunity. So I think that'll be the talk in the dressing room, is that here now, this is a free shot. Let's go out and have a go. Let's not overthink it, and let's see what happens.
If we're to get into the, I suppose, matchups before we move on to the second game, Mike, for Salthill, you mentioned they're going after Damien Comer, and Frankie Burke is going to be key for them. Who do you think Salthill will match up with these two?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Yeah, I think they'll probably play a sweeper. I'd say, like, Paul. I think they'll probably sit Garage Armstrong back. I think he's been sitting back a bit in the last game, like, and they'll sit him in front of the full back line, and they'll probably put Owen McFadden probably on Frankie Burke and I don't know who they put on Comer, like, I just think they're going to have to sit back, because, like, I think if they play an open game football and they just go 15 on 15, I think you're only inviting trouble, like, because I know Byrne had nothing to play for above, like, in Ballinasloe that night, but I went up to that game and, like, Annadown, just the two boys inside just ran riot in the first 10 or 15 minutes. The game was out of sight after 10 minutes, so Salthill are going to have to sit back and keep out the goals. Like, you can see the last day, Damien Comer got another goal, Annadown win by 2 points. That was the difference. That was the difference in the day, the goal Damien got, like, so. I think they just have to keep out the goals, keep Damien Comer at bay, and if they do that, they'll go a long way in winning it.
And then the downside of things, then, Gizzy, like, you're looking at Robert Finnerty and Tomo, like, they're the two key men that they have to try and nullify, because I suppose in the group game they caused Annadown a lot of difficulty.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they might look at bringing Owen Kearns in from the start, depending on if he's trained and he's doing well at training, or if he's marking Frankie at training and doing well. He's probably someone that might come in and do a job there. Malarkey will probably sweep. He usually, and he's good at that. I think Annadown will probably get bodies behind the ball and look to counter attack. It's a pattern of play that Alan Flynn seems to like. And to be fair, it's something that you probably need to do against Salthill, so it'll suit them. To Mike's point, that if Salthill then just start throwing bodies forward and get turned over, they can be very vulnerable at the back, and that'll suit Annadown. But outside of that, I don't know. Maybe Ryan Ford pick up Tom O'Mike, or
Ciaran Potter, maybe.
Ciaran Potter,
yeah. He was very good against Berna. I watched him, yeah, very good. But you still don't have any, Bear. That's why I'd be saying to put Owen Kearns in from the nearly start, even though, let's just hope he's been training the last few weeks, because they've no real standout man marker Annadown, really. Maybe you might mention Potter or someone like that. So, like, it's not as if you've just one top class forward in Salthill. You really have two if Rob Finnerty starts. And then Evan Murphy's there as well if he starts. Like, you have few nice forwards to mind. In Salthill. Like, so, I think if he's in good enough shape, I think it's key for Owen Kearns to start. Like, to take one of them good players Salthill out. Like,
Do you have to go after and mark Carl Sweeney this weekend, lads?
Yeah, I suppose it all depends where he plays, Paul. Like, if he play around the half back line, half forward line, like, he's sort of player that'll just run all day. I feel like, he's a very good player to have in your team too. Like, a lad that'll bring ball up the field and kick a score or two. Like, but it's hard to know where he's going to play. Like, will he play in the half forward line? Will he play midfield? You know what I mean? John Maher is another good player playing midfield as well. Like, and he was in the goal panel a few years ago. Like, so. Yeah, Carl Sweeney, yeah, probably played. Was he midfield the last day? I'm not sure.
Wing back the last day, I think.
Wing back the last day, bomb forward, yeah. So,
he seemed to be picking up Jamie Murphy, but no, I mightn't be right in that. But yeah, look at if you have the manpower to mark him, then fair enough. But like, he seems very quick. He seems to have that ability to get forward. So potentially maybe like Annadown just need to be goal side and get Cathal Sweeney running into a wall of Annadown bodies. Same with Maher and Murphy and these guys. Whereas if you're marking Cathal Sweeney and you're chasing him, you're in bother. And that's not what Annadown would want. So I think Annadown will drop bodies back and potentially look for Sweeney to run into trouble then maybe.
Yeah, I think it's going to be as you say, Annadown drop bodies back, and I think Salthill drop bodies back as well. Like, so I think it could be a low scored enough game. Like, so that's why I'd be wary if I was Salthill of Damien Comer threat of getting a goal. Do you know what I mean? A goal would be huge in a game like that if both teams are going to be played that bit defensively. You could just have a game maybe 10-8, 10-9, so it's a scoreline like that. Like, so it's. I think it mightn't be a spectacle the next day. It could be a low cagey affair. That's the sort of game I'm expecting. I know, like,
And Salthill have struggled, even though they played well against Mountbellew, good win over Tuam, but they did struggle against James's a few weeks ago, and we see where James's are at now. So Annadown will know that too, and they won't. They'll take great confidence from that. Now, the only thing that might catch Annadown is obviously the bench. The Salthill's bench seems stronger. They brought on Murphy the last day. That Brian Conlon that started the last day, like he's around a long time, but he's a good finisher. And you see that by the goal he got. In fairness, if he gets them chances, he won't miss. There was a Walser guy that I think it was Robert Walser. He played a couple of years back against us. He was a good footballer, and he's on the bench.
Yeah.
So like Salthill definitely have the stronger bench, and coming down the home straight, that's what might catch Annadown and end up is that they might just have that lack of manpower.
Big battle around the middle, Mike, as well. Jeremy Kilcommons and John Mary expect to go toe to toe, like two lads who are on the fringes of the Galway panel, you could say.
Yeah, exactly, and like, you know, it's a super opportunity for them two lads, you know, to kind of, you know, put their hand up and say, you know, they could contribute to Galway next year. Like, so it's just some opportunity for them two and for a lot more players playing the next year. Like, you know, if you're a young lad there in your 20s, you know what I mean? If you go out and perform on Sunday, you just don't know where it'll lead to. Like, you know, you could get a few trial games in Galway, like, you know. So, yeah, you'd be expecting John Maher now, maybe big performance on Sunday. Like, he's kind of been thereabouts now the last 5 or 6 years, you know, kind of coming and going. And, you know, this is a big game for him now on Sunday. And, you know, you'd be expecting big things from him, you know.
Easy for you to call this one first.
Your head would have to say Salthill, but I wouldn't be surprised with Annadown, to be honest. It wouldn't be any great shock, but I'll go with Salthill, but just about.
Hopefully you're wrong. And Mike?
Yeah, I just think I've been saying Salthill all year, like, you know what I mean? They're kind of the up and coming young team, and I just think if they can cut the supply ball into Damien Comer and Frankie Burke and keep it nice and tight, and hopefully Rob Finnerty starts and has a big game, and if Tom O'Quinlan can back up the performance he did against Tuam. And another thing, as I said, if John Maher can step up there midfield the next day and 5 or 6 of the rest of the lads contribute, I think Salthill could just shade it there about 2 or 3 points.
Next game up then, Mountbellew Moylough versus Moycullen, second semi-final, 3:45 in Pearse Stadium. Kieran, do you think the 2020 final where Moycullen overturned Mountbellew plays a factor? Because if you look at it, it was taking Mountbellew quite a while to get the better of ye. They were really expecting to win the county title. Moycullen took it off them. Do you think that's on their minds?
I think it works in the favour of Moycullen because definitely if you were looking at it when Corofin were on top, Mountbellew were seen as probably the second best team in Galway. Moycullen really weren't been talked about, and that county final has given Moycullen great confidence to go on and I suppose have the belief that they're good enough to compete and good enough to win county titles, and I suppose that's why they're in a semi-final again. So I think a lot of teams would fear Mountbellew and fear their firepower and their physicality and stuff. I don't think Moycullen will, to be honest. I think Moycullen will have the belief that they're better than Mountbellew after that county final, because when it came to the crunch and it mattered most, Moycullen won it. So that'll play on the minds of the Moycullen lads that they have the ability to win it.
For
Moycullen, Mike, like that Clare Galway game, it's safe to say they got out of jail there.
Yeah, geez, I couldn't believe it, Paul, when I seen the result. Like, you know what I mean? I couldn't believe, like, you know what I mean? Because we drew with Clare Galway and we probably should have went through, like, you know, but yeah, I wouldn't have feared Clare Galway at all. I thought, I said it here and the last time I was talking to you, like, Moycullen, I thought they'd win 5-6 points handy, like, you know, but they were pushed all the way. Like, sometimes that might be no harm as well. Like, maybe Moycullen, it was plain sailing so far. They had a few big teams bet, the bet Corofin, the bet Tuam, and they probably thought they were coasting. So it's probably no harm for a bit of a reality check. Like, you know, maybe we're not as far ahead or as we think we are, like, you know. So yeah, so Moycullen, yeah. So I think it's just set up for a huge game. Like it's massive. You know, there's revenge in it for Mountbellew after being bet in the 2020 county final. I suppose a few doubts over Moycullen after the last you know, even probably a few doubts over Mountbellew as well. Like, you know, were they too reliant on Barry McHugh? We get 10 points out of 15 the last against Corofin. You know, no one thought Corofin would push them to within a point of them the last day. Like, you know, and I suppose Corofin are probably kicking themselves now. Like, you know, if they only had the 2 or 3 lads, you know, the Liam Silk or Kieran McGrath that was injured, if they only had them, they'd have probably beaten them. Like, you know, so you know, I think there's a few doubts over both teams. Like, and the two of them will be up for proving a big point on Sunday. So I think that's what makes it out to be a cracker of a match in store.
And with Corofin coming so close, Gizzy, like where do you feel Mountbellew are at the minute?
Well, if you ask me at the start of the year, I'd say they're the best team in Galway. I'll give them that. But after the last day, like they are very reliant on 2 or 3 players, and it's very obvious that some guys, like a lot of the guys, don't take the shots on. They're very reliant on ball getting to Kelly or McHugh or Finnerty, and they take the shots on. Mike Daly's a massive loss. To be fair, he's a massive loss to any team. So he's a huge loss to them. And if Finnerty is injured, he's another massive loss. The way he's been playing over the last few years. You know, Patrick Kelly was kept quiet the last day, but Barry McHugh stepped up, to be fair to him. And that seems applied by Mountbellew is like they work it around, try and get McHugh or Finnerty on or Kelly to get a shot off. And if not, they'll that little ding pass inside the 45 or inside the 21 to get the mark. And it works, in fairness. And it's very hard as a defender to mark that, especially with a guy like Barry McHugh, because he can play from the front or from behind, and he's big and he's quick for a big man to know. So it's hard to defend that. And Corofin struggled with it. And I'm sure Moycullen, now, if Finnerty is out, it leaves Moycullen. They could probably put Kelly on Barry McHugh, and that's a different animal for Barry McHugh to deal with. But equally, Paul, I wasn't awfully impressed when I saw Moycullen. I went to the Corofin Moycullen game. I thought in the first half, Corofin were very comfortable, looked better organised, seemed to have a better game plan. And Moycullen just seemed to run into trouble, run it down. They were trying to ram it down the middle of Corofin. Corofin obviously had them well analysed and were dealing with it quite well. They were kicking long ball into Desi at times. He was outnumbered. Gavin Burke was dealing well with that. Now, the problem was in the second half, they probably didn't change it up a whole lot, but I suppose they've such strong runners. They kept going. Eventually, Sean Kelly got on the end of the move and it worked and they got a goal. And equally, they stopped kicking the ball into Desi. They tended to run it to Desi. Desi came on the loop and was able to get shots away, and Gavin struggled with that. So and up to half time, I would have said, look, this is a 2-horse race. It's Corofin, Mountbellew. But I was obviously wrong.
Is Mountbellew's panel though being tested a bit more this year, Gizzy? With like Mike Daly out, Shane Moran last year to wing forward, like he done a lot of work for them around the half forward line, but it just seemed the last day when they were in trouble against Corofin, you didn't necessarily know who was going to come on. I think it was 2 subs they only used or something.
Yeah, and I think if the game had it gone into extra time, I think it was you'd be looking at Corofin to be favourites, because they had more subs to bring off the bench again, and they could recycle the likes of Gary Sice. If he got in for a second chance, I'm sure he would have caused damage. Now Mountbellew did miss Gary Sweeney. I don't know. I don't think he was injured. I think he might have been away with work. So if he's back, he's a huge asset. But I do think after watching the last year, their panel isn't that strong. Very reliant on 3 or 4 players. Now in fairness, Colin Ryan did well the last day, kicked 2 points from wing back. James Foley struggled on Ian Burke, but that could happen to anyone. And he grew into the game as it went on and actually did well. The fact that he was booked to stay disciplined, to not get booked again, and Billy Mannion played well. So like they're probably reliant on 7 or 8 players. Barrett came into it a bit more in the second half, but if when it gets to county semi-final, county final into a Connacht series, you need 15 footballers. You need 2 or 3 subs to bring on. You can't be relying on 4 or 5 lads to do it for you, and that might be a flaw in Mountbellew's armour.
And just with Moycullen, like you look at the Clare game, Sean Kelly deployed at centre forward. Sean Kelly has to go back into that full back line because like they got cut open. You look at Clare's last play of the game, they played across to Barry Goldrick. If he keeps it lower, they could be out of the championship. Like Conor Flaherty would probably look back at his mark he missed. Like they really did give Clare opportunities.
Oh, they did, yeah. Like Sean Kelly will have to go back probably on Barry McHugh after what Barry McHugh did the last day again. Like in Corofin, like, you know, but I think Mountbellew or Moycullen, they just go down an awful lot the middle. They're always going down the middle, trying to cut open, like, you know, and I think Mountbellew will know that, like, you know, but I think a big matchup as well is Matthew Barrett and Peter Cook if they pick up each other, like, you know. I suppose Peter Cook has been in great form, like, you know, and Matthew Barrett has been okay as well, like, you know, so that's a big one on Sunday, you know, who comes out on top of there, like, you know, but as Kitsy said there, they are reliant enough on a few players, Mountbellew, like, and that would be a worry. And I said it here the last day I was talking to you, like, you know, about the Michael Daly, missing Michael Daly, like, you know, he's so important to Mountbellew, and if he's not playing the next day, which he probably isn't, like, you know, or involved, you know, it's a bit like Corofin missing all the players, like, you know what I mean? Even though they came within a point of beating Mountbellew, like, you know, will it take a toll to missing that quality of a player, like, you know, the next day? And I think it could, like, you know, but it's just hard to know. It's hard to know how things will go the next day. I think it's just interesting. I think it'll be 50-50 game, to be honest with you.
We're talking here.
Last year, Paul, in that semi-final too, I think like Mountbellew probably ran out comfortable enough in the semi-final, but I think in the first half, from what I remember, Moycullen gifted them 2 goals. One was a soft penalty where I think it was a tackle off the ball more so than on the ball by Wynn, and the other one was just a high ball into the square that they just didn't deal with. And I mean, realistically, you probably shouldn't be getting caught here in the game by Patrick Kelly standing on the edge of the square and catching a long ball in. Now, another thing about Moycullen today against Corofin was that their tactic on kickouts seemed to be out to the right. There was a Davern that was out at wing forward. Now it worked. It worked. He must have caught 90% of kickouts or 75% of kickouts that went out there. So that's obviously a tactic that they apply, and Mountbellew struggled with Dylan Kelly when Dylan Kelly came out to the wing forward pocket on kickouts. Dylan caught maybe 4. Yeah, you know, so that's if you give a team an out like that, it's a great platform. So Mountbellew will have to be conscious of that and deal with it, and equally Moycullen will have to be conscious that if Paddy Kelly's inside too, they can't leave a small cornerback on.
It'll be an open game of football though, Gizzy, I think, isn't it? I think, you know, it's only 2 big teams, you know, I think they should go at it, like, you know what I mean? And I think that's the way it could turn out, like, you know, and I think it could be a total different game to the first game, like, you know, so I think.
Yeah, in the first game, if you're an Annadown man, you're probably hoping for bad weather and a bad pitch, and in the second game, as a neutral, you're probably hoping that the sun is splitting the rocks and that that weather doesn't play a part and both teams can go at it.
If you're looking at the Moycullen backs, just for Ian Gizzy, obviously as a back, the Moycullen full back line the last day, you had Cian Dean, Neil Mulcahy, Conor Corcoran, half back line of Owen Kelly, David Wynn, and Michael Mahan. Like, you have to expect there's going to be a bit of a shake up there, because if you're looking at the 2 cornerbacks, like, they're 2 small cornerbacks, you're thinking lump Patrick Kelly in straight away.
Yeah, Yeah, and sometimes football doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple, and like put a big man at the edge of the square and see what happens, see what comes of it. And Sean Kelly can't mark everyone. So if Patrick Kelly's in there and Barry McHugh's in there, then they have a decision to make. And in fairness to Corofin, they got matchups right. It's just that they had so many matchups to get right that one fell, and that happens. And Silky struggled that day, and Carl has been a great servant to Corofin football, but he struggled that day. But I think he struggled in the second half because he had been booked and he couldn't be. Silky likes to play on the edge, and he couldn't play on the edge when he had been booked, and that probably affected him a bit. But what Moycullen do, I suppose, look at Barry McHugh needs to be stopped. You put Sean Kenny on him, and then obviously you try and match, and maybe wins a man that goes back on Kelly. You know, I don't know. Does Bradshaw exist anymore in the panel, or I know there was a couple of issues, or that he had left, or was that sorted? I wonder, or will he feature?
He hasn't been on any panel this year, anyway. There's no sign of him the last day. So it doesn't look like it. I know Aidan Claffey's back now. He could slot in somewhere there. He usually plays in the half-back line.
The lad there, James McLaughlin as well. I wonder if he's back. He was injured. He was in the Galway panel one
He's gone for the year. Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I think he tore his hamstring. So yeah, I'm not sure they have to get surgery, but he's gone for most of the year, anyways.
Yeah.
And Gallagher is only going back to fitness as well. Like.
Yeah. But I think it's a big game. It's a big game for Patrick Kelly as well the next day, like, because he was probably quiet against Corofin, like, so he'll have a big point to prove now the next day, like, you know. So for a county player, you know, you'd expect big things from him, like, you know, he's a super player, like, and that height in around the full forward line. As you said, it'll be hard enough for Moycullen. You know, it's like trying to mind them all, like, you know. So it'll be interesting if they throw him inside, like, with Barry McHugh. Plus, if Owen Finnerty's injured, like, that's a massive loss, like, to Mountbellew. Put him on top of Michael Daly, like, they're two huge losses, you know. So just let's hope he's not, like, and they can play with pretty much a full deck, like, you know.
Gizzy, when you played Mountbellew, would you went after John Daly because he's such a central part of this team?
Yeah, and look, you'd always go after the opposition key players, to be fair. And the more we played Milltown, like, you'd go after Mikey as well, you know. So I think every team nowadays goes after the opposition key players, and often your key players in your half back line, because John Daly, even though he doesn't seem to have much pace, like say that the likes of Cathal Sweeney, he causes you different trouble he's like a quarterback. I mean, look at he made the headlines playing inter-county football the way he could deliver the ball inside, lovely little dink pass, 30 meters, 40 meters, you know, lovely balls for a forward to come onto. So he's like a quarterback for them. And maybe was that applied by Moycullen putting Sean Kelly up to centre forward to see if it was an option playing Mountbellew? As we said previously, I think Sean Kelly has to be back in the full back line, but definitely you need a man to just worry about John Daly, and just you got to engage him, where the last year for Galway and a lot from Mountbellew, he's allowed drop off and sit in front of the full back line, protect the full back line, and get on ball and set up the play. So you probably need a guy that's on him, that'll stop him doing that when he's in possession. But also you need a guy that's going to threaten him out of possession, that you have to force him to pick a man up, get tight, and mark that he can't be going around helping other guys. And if you do that, then it becomes man on man, and you see the likes of what Ian Burke, the damage he caused when it was man on man the last day for at times.
Would you put someone on him this weekend, Mike? Like, even if you're thinking of someone maybe with a bit of a physical presence, like you're maybe looking at Owen Gallagher.
Yeah, I just think I'd put someone on him just to mark him. You know what I mean? He wouldn't have to, like, if you take John Daly out of the game, like, you know, like, I can only say in my experience of marking him there last year, like, you know, the two players that, you know, you can't take your eye off. Normally Baxter's supposed to be marking you, like, but himself and Liam Silk, like, you're marking, they're supposed to be marking you, but really you're marking them, like, you know. and you're kind of watching every move they make. So I think if I was Moycullen, I just get some player. Owen Gallagher could be the role. They'll just go with him and sacrifice his own game just to take John Daly out of the game, because John Daly is just such a quality player. Like his kick passing in the All Ireland, you know, it's unreal. He sets up everything. Like, you know, like I was marking him last year in the quarter final that on the group games, and like he's here and then he's gone. Like, you know, and you're kind of watching him, and all of a sudden he went through for a goal. Like, and he's just. He could be here. He's just like Liam Silk. Like he creeps in around the back. He kind of goes up and he goes up and unknown to you. Like, so I just think I get a player to man mark him for the day, and even if it sacrifices his own game, what about if you can keep John Daly out the game? It's you know, you'll go a long way of beating Mountbellew, like, you know.
Someone like James Foley probably to tee up then with Desi Keneally, Gizzy.
Yeah, you would think so. Now the only thing is James had his hands full with Ian Burke, but when Ian Burke is in that kind of form, he's hard stop and he's going to trouble any defender. But it looks likely he's an inter-county defender and predominantly plays in the full back line, so it's a very obvious choice. But to be fair to Desi for his club seems to be a big game player and has turned up, and even in the second half against Corofin, thought he was very good and was the difference that day. So like definitely he needs marking, he needs watching, but it's easier said than done, because he has an array of, like, he's like an old, he'll battle away inside when it's kicked in anyway at all. He'll come on the loop. He's always very busy. He's always on the move. So they will have their hands full with him, yeah.
Mike, you mentioned it earlier. It just feels like the key battle in this one is Peter Cook and Matthew Barrett.
Oh, definitely, Paul, without shadow of a doubt. Like, you know, Peter Cook probably he's been central to Moycullen's year. Like, you know, he's kicking long range threes. He's kind of setting up. He's sitting in the pocket, kind of spraying ball left and right. You know, and Matthew Barrett, then on the other hand, you know, he'd run all day for you. He'd catch ball. I think he scored a point or two again, Corofin. You know, so I think whoever comes out there on top, like, it's going to have a huge say in the game. And for some reason, I just think Matthew Barrett could edge it. I think he's a good player. He could get in Peter Cook's face, and he could really give Peter Cook plenty to deal with. Like, you know, one thing with Peter Cook, you want to put him on your back foot, and the only way you put him on your back foot if you run at him and carry ball and get him following you. And I think if he can go at that, Matthew Barrett, I think, you know, he could just kind of be a bit much for Peter Cook, like, you know.
And if you to call it, Mike?
Well, I said Mountbellew would win. I think Salthill are just the kind of team that hopefully comes through to a final, and I think they'll. You know, I've been awful impressed with them all year. Like, you know, I just have a thing for Salthill. I think they could be a surprise package, but for the next day, I just think Mountbellew. I backed them all year. They've blitzed some teams, you know, but I think they just get by maybe about 2 or 3 points, you know. Maybe that blip against Claregal, where they just won't get over the line again, Moycullen. Maybe there's something more to it, but they've drifted a bit of form, like, you know. So, you know, but Mountbellew for me, because I just think anytime you beat Corofin in championship, you got to be favourites going into the next game, and I think Mountbellew for me by 2 or 3 points.
And to have the final say, Gizzy?
Yeah, I would have said at the start of the year, Mountbellew would have been favourites. I won't change that now after watching Moycullen play Corofin. But and the one thing that will stand to Mountbellew is that Corofin, even though they've got over Corofin the last year or two, that game was there was a little bit of a monkey on their back too, where there was an unknown about Corofin. The narrative had changed from, like, the years we played Mountbellew was always Mountbellew were coming in as the underdog and were tearing into us. Now Corofin were going in as the underdogs and tearing into them. And it was going to be a tough ask for Mountbellew, and they got over the line. So that's a positive for them. But in saying that, it's hard do back to back. And there is a lot when you do back to back, there is a lot of twists and turns along the way. So I'll go with Mountbellew, but there will be a twist or turn in that they won't get it their own way, and they'll be tested again the next day.
be interesting to see. Hopefully, you'll both be wrong anyways, and Annadown will be into the final. But thanks a million to everyone for listening, and thanks a million, lads, for coming on.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks.